Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Time for the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational. $1 million is the purse. We're going a mile and 3/16 on the turf. Great opportunity to sign up for DRF bets and bet the Pegasus World Cup card. Great betting races throughout the afternoon. New players double your first deposit up to $250 at drf.com/bet. Here's the field for the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational presented by Run Happy. It's a wide open race. You've got the Mare Magic Wand in here, who's a true globetrotter. Chad Brown, of course, is well represented. And then you've got just a hard-hitting, likable horse in Sadler's Joy.
This is a very, very good race. There are a lot of talented horses in here. It's just one of those races where it feels like most of the good horses in this older division going long on the turf. It feels like most of them showed up for this race, Dan, and a lot of different horses can win this race. Another race, trips are going to be very important.
Looks like a great race on paper. And let's look at the Timeform US Pace Projector for the mile and 3/16 test. We're expecting the 6 Instill Regard, a horse that doesn't really have a ton of blazing early speed, to be out there on the lead. And maybe that's something to look out for. The fact that we have Instill Regard on the lead might make this pace kind of slow.
Yeah, there's no blazers in here, that's for sure. It's going to be very interesting to see what kind of tactics a lot of these riders employ, because there's no horse in here that just feels like they just want to come out of there running and make the pace in this race. Maybe it will be Instill Regard.
Mofort to the 10. We know that would be a great situation for him, because he does have that stalking ability where he can sit up close to another horse. He's stepping up in class, but this might be an ideal situation for him. Let's start off with one of the more likable horses in the division, the number 1 Zulu Alpha. 5 consecutive triple-digit Beyer speed figures. He seems to show up every time, including this effort in the Breeders' Cup Turf, beaten less than 2 lengths. He is way out of it. He's swung widest. He is out of the picture. He's going to keep grinding under Jose Ortiz, and he's only going to get beat a length and 3/4 by one of the best horses in 2019, Bricks and Mortar, doubtlessly the best turf horse in the country. He's the number 1, gaining in 4th. My question for you is, Zulu Alpha really seemed to find himself when Michael Maker stretched him out to 11, 12 furlongs. Do you think 9.5 could be a little sharp for him? He's so consistent.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons that I like him in this race, first of all, I like that he's tactical. It was sort of surprising to me to watch that Breeders' Cup back and see Jose Ortiz just rate him back in last, all the way up the backstretch, swing him widest at the top of the stretch from nowhere, and he actually put in a nice run in that race. I think he's more tactical than that. And I also feel like he's one of the horses. One of the things that sort of I struggled with in this race was who's going to handle going a little bit shorter and who really wants to go a little bit longer. I think he's one of the horses who will really handle going a little bit shorter, as opposed to horses like Sadler's Joy, who we'll get to, who feels like he really wants to go long.
And he loves Gulfstream as well.
He does,
Zulu Alpha went on a real nice tear here last year, winning the McKnight and the McDermott at the championship meeting. The 2 is Arklow. You can never sell him short. Yeah. He's earned $1.8 million in his career. And while he finished 8th in the Breeders' Cup Turf last time out, he took the Joe Hirsch 2 back. It was a deserved Grade 1 win for a horse that had a couple of tough trips, finishing 2nd and 3rd and nibbling. He beat Sadler's Joy on the square that day.
Yeah, he did. That was a nice performance for him. His effort in the Breeders' Cup Turf, you don't want to be too hard on him for either. Just on a 4-wide chase most of the way in there. That was a really tough trip for him. I like this horse a lot. I think he fits well in this race. He is one of the horses that I sort of was alluding to earlier when we were talking about Zulu Alpha. I think this horse, he feels like he really got a lot better when they stretched him out. I think he wants to go a little longer than this.
Now, distance might be a little bit of a question for the 3 without Parole, who was a Group 1 winner going a mile at Ascot in 2018, and Chad ran him in the Breeders' Cup Mile off a long layoff, and considering the quality of the mares he was in against, he ran quite well. Let's watch the Breeders' Cup Mile. Uni and Got Stormy are going to win this race, but we're going to see without Parole rally for 3rd. And as we watched this tape earlier on, you mentioned he's grinding, and maybe that style really will help him as he stretches out to a mile and 3/16. He's kicking it into gear here for 3rd.
He really finishes well at the end of this race. He just gets up for 3rd. It's interesting because he actually got an overall good trip in that race. Irad was riding him that day, got him out into the clear on the 2nd turn. He was trying to follow Uni. He just couldn't accelerate with her, but he was really staying on at the end of that race. This horse has a ton of talent. And I think it's a good sign that Chad's bringing him back in this race. We're going to see a good effort out of this horse.
Just consider, that was his first race off a long layoff, and he fired. Got stormy, of course, came back to win the Matriarch with a 104 fire speed figure. Sadler's Joy has banked $2.4 million in his career, and as he's gotten older, he seems to have found a tactical gear. You remember early in his career, he was just a one-run closer, and there would be times when the trip didn't work out or the pace didn't work out. He's capable of making his own trip. Now, last time out on the Red Smith, he fell behind. The pace was solid, and he's just better than these horses. He's the number 7 in the blue and yellow cap, and he's just running by them.
He dominates this field. This is another good performance for this horse. He's better than these horses in the Red Smith, but he also classes up really well against Grade 1 types going long. It's interesting that you mentioned that he showed more tactical speed a couple of times last year. It feels like he did that when Jose Lascano was riding him, and then when the other guys ride him, they just decide to take him back. Lascano, or Castellano especially, likes to take him back and make one run. It's not a problem for him. He's a really nice horse. He fits well in here. But he's another horse whose best form is all going longer. He's going to have to do it going shorter.
That's the key, especially if the pace is slow and they do decide to take him back. He does have an explosive late run, but he might need a trip to work out. Channel Cat goes out for Todd Pletcher. He has that tactical speed. And you see the way he won the Bowling Green at Saratoga, where he just stole it on the front end, beating Arclo. And it makes you wonder if John Velasquez is going to try something similar here, saying there doesn't seem to be a ton of speed. Maybe I won't make the lead, but maybe I'll be sitting second or third in a prime position. Channel Cat's earned some nice races. I may not be his biggest fan, but he's not out of this by a long shot.
He's another horse who fits really well in this race. And he's another one who I feel like they cut him back to 9 furlongs last time. He ran pretty well in there. It feels like he'll handle the shorter distance maybe better than some of the other horses will. And I think you're right, Dan. If Johnny V decides to get a little aggressive early, this horse could fall into a really nice trip here.
He was beaten in a blanket finish in that 9-furlong Fort Lauderdale. The winner of that race was Chad Brown's Instilled Regard, and we're going to watch that race right now. Instilled Regard's going to split horses. He's in the red OXO silks. He's going to split them. Channel Cat's going to finish third. He's in the black silks on the outside. Far outside his admission office, and this is admission office, the story of his career. He has no early speed. You see that half-mile split in 49. It's going to be tough to make up that kind of ground.
He was way up against it in there. Listen, as far as Instilled Regard goes, that's clearly a case of a horse getting the right trip and taking advantage of it. It really worked to his favor that day. It's a nice Grade 2 win for him. I'm not buying into this horse right now. I think the other two Chads in this race are both better.
I think the best thing about it, Instilled Regard, despite his tactical speed, is he handles a mile and 3/16. These middle distances might be very good for Instilled Regard. I like him a little bit more than you do, but I want to see him do it again. As for admission office, it's been just a source of frustration for Brian Lynch and the connections, because you look at his race in the Dixie back in May where he didn't have the right trip and he got beat a half length. In the Wise Dan, he didn't have the right trip. He got beat a half length. Same situations in both the River City and last time out in the Fort Lauderdale, just taken back to last in a race with no pace and coming at the end. I think the 9.5 is good for him. I'm just concerned about that situation. He shouldn't be 30-1 against this field, though.
No, he shouldn't be. And if you can get that price on him, you should probably take it. Because I think he does overall. This is a pretty tough field, but I think he fits okay in this race. He just really needs a trip, Dan. And, so far, he just hasn't been able to get one since he won his first start for Lynch at Keeneland, and he ran well winning that allowance race. It's just been one problem after another for him, and his running style has a lot to do with it.
And you could certainly also make the argument he's not the best true closer in the race, and that if the pace does heat up, he might need a lot of things to go his way. But I still think there's some upside here. He's very lightly raced. Henley's Joy is the 8. Michael Maker's turned this horse into a millionaire. He has placed him in the right spots. Winner of the Belmont Derby at 1.25 miles. I don't know, Mike. I thought maybe he sort of tailed off form towards the end of last year. He had a long season. As a matter of fact, you look over his PPs, not one layoff line.
No, they just keep going with this horse, and you wonder when they're going to finally give him some time off, because maybe he needs it. I think you're right. He felt like he sort of tailed off at the end of last year, and it didn't help him that Mofort, who beat him in his last two, is just a lot more tactical than him.
From Southern California comes another Grade 1 winner. This is Next Chairs, who won the Shadwell Turf Mile in 2018, got back to his winning ways last time out at a big number in the Seabiscuit at Del Mar. Let's watch that race. Next Chairs, he got the better trip than the horse he beat, Sacred Life, who's in the blue and is trying to extricate himself to the outside. By the time Sacred Life is straightened out, the race is pretty much over. But
Yeah.
look at Sacred Life finish.
Yeah, Sacred Life puts in a really nice run in this race. He was held up coming to the stretch, and once he got clear, he really kicked. It was too late. That was some ride by Jose Valdivia, though. Sitting in behind, the rail opened up. He came right through. And Sacred Life was behind him on the rail around the turn. He decided to look to the outside. Valdivia sat in, and it worked perfectly.
Another horse that's very consistent is next year's. He has a little bit of tactical speed if they choose to use it. And he wouldn't mind if there was a little bit of moisture in the surface. Mofort might be the horse with the most upside. He might be the horse we're talking about in the fall because he just sort of emerged from nowhere. And I've been talking about Mofort in some of these stakes previews, and his form looks a little bit like Omaha Beach. Early in his career, couldn't get over the hump at short prices in races where he was supposed to win. And then all of a sudden, the light bulb turned on. He's now won 4 in a row, and he's won them easily against 3-year-olds in Southern California. Here's the win in the Mathis Brothers Mile. We missed the key part of this race, where he made this 4-5 wide sweep on the backstretch and kind of went from 9th to 3rd in a matter of 6 strides. And the fact that he's still lengthening under just really confident handling, the only reason Rosario's popping him is just to keep him straight, because he does get a tendency to drift in the lane. But it's nice to know he has that in his arsenal. If they go fast, he can rally. If they don't go fast, like in the Hollywood Derby and the Twilight Derby, he can park himself off. I've been very impressed with this horse.
Me too. I mean, listen, this is a really tough spot for him. He's stepping way up in class in this race. And listen, he's won 3 graded stakes in a row against 3-year-olds, but he's almost in a different world now against basically all of the top middle and longer distance turf horses in the country. So he's going to have to up his game. And they've been pretty stingy with him on the morning line. So I wouldn't be taking that kind of price on him. But listen, the trip could work for him. He's going to get the distance, and he has been visually impressive in his wins.
I think there are going to be a lot of folks that watch the Seabiscuit and say, well, listen, I'd rather have Sacred Life. Next year's got the great trip. Sacred Life didn't have a good trip, and he was firing at the end. And he's certainly run fast races. That triple-digit fig in the Bernard Baruch 3 starts back puts him there. I'm not really worried about distance too much. I think this is probably at the very end of it, a 9.5. But his win at Keeneland came when he just got an electric pace up front, and I wonder if he's kind of dependent on that.
Yeah, maybe he'll need that kind of setup, but he did run well in the Keeneland race. He ran well last time. That was a very unlucky loss for this horse. He's actually run well in all 4 starts for Chad. He was a good horse in France. Post 11's no bargain for this horse, but Ortiz probably takes this horse back and tries to make one run.
Don't be fooled by the lifetime record of Magic Wand. She's 3 for 22 lifetime. She is a Grade 1 winner in Australia. She's multiple Grade 1 placed in France. She's multiple Grade 1 placed in the USA. She's Grade 1 placed in Hong Kong. She's a Grade 2 winner in Britain. And she's Group 1 placed in Ireland. And she shows up each and every time. This is not an ideal post position for Magic Wand, but it doesn't matter if she's in against the boys or whether she runs anywhere in the world, she fires.
I mean, that's so true. I mean, you can't find one race on her card, really, where she didn't show up and run. Twice when they shipped her over here, and they just move her around. They don't care about shipping her anywhere. Twice ran really well behind Bricks and Mortar in the U.S. And obviously Bricks and Mortar was the best turf horse in this country last year. So in a lot of ways, they have her to beat despite the 3 for 22 record. Post 12's no bargain, Dan, and she's going to be a short price. But how do you knock this horse?
Tusk is on the also eligible list, stepping up in class in sharp form for connections. Let's take a look at our top picks for the Pegasus World Cup Turf. It is a wide open race. Mike's going to go with Zulu Alpha. He's remarkably consistent, and I think breaking from the rail, Tyler Gaffalione can get this horse into the race, into mid-pack, sitting 4th or 5th while saving valuable ground. I've just been chasing in Mission Office too long. This spot might be too tough for him, but he's going to be a whale of a number on the tote. He's going to come with a big run. I want to use him in your second pick without Parole. I'm probably using my 4 in multis.
And Mission Office is due for some luck, isn't he? He's got to get some at some point. He's an interesting price at a very big. It might be, but he's an interesting horse at a very big price. A race a lot of different horses can win, I think. 7-3-4-1
for me, 1-3-7-5 for Mike. We're not using Magic Wand, who could easily win this race and might very well be the favorite. It is a sensational edition of the Pegasus World Cup Turf. Approximate post time for race 11 at Gulfstream on Saturday, 4:49 Eastern. Good luck.